We live in a Slowbro meta right now in Pokemon Unite. What do I mean by this? Well, Slowbro had the highest pick rate this past week with over a 51% pick rate, which is pretty unheard of, especially as a defender style Pokemon having this much of a pick rate. Pretty crazy, pretty rare. How did this happen? Well, both Scald and Surf got buffed relatively recently. But which is better? Which move is actually better, Scald or Surf? Well, hopefully by the end of this video, I'll be able to break that down. Hello everyone, this is the Vizier back with another video, and today we're going to be doing a discussion or guide style video explaining which move is better, Scald or Surf, because Slowbro is in almost every match I play right now, and it's kind of a pain to deal with. But there are certain situations where I think one move is better than the other, and vice versa. But if you don't have much time to watch this entire video, I'll just lay it out for you. Surf in most cases is the best choice if you don't want to watch the entire video. That is the general verdict I have. I do think that Surf in most cases is better. If you want more details, definitely watch the entire video. If you want certain situations to see where Scald is actually better, because there are certain games where I do think Scald is better, definitely keep watching. But if you don't have time, I completely understand. Subscribing is cool. Liking is cool too, but subscribing is even cooler, so would appreciate if you did that. But let's get into things in more detail. Let's start with Scald. Now, Scald is a bit of a confusing move, and I'm going to try and clear up any misconceptions that are there about it, because I think there are definitely quite a few, and we'll see if I can make that a bit more clear by the end of this. First of all, Scald fires water at the opponents. It causes them to be slowed for a bit, which is something people forget about. That's pretty big in team fights. It's a fairly decent sized area of slowing the opponents, and it also applies an effect that burns them. So they're taking a bit of damage over time, and this burn reduces the opponent's attack stat by 60% for 3 seconds. Now, it used to be 40%, the buff made it 60%, and 60% is a lot. But specifically, something you should keep in mind is that it lowers their attack stat. Now, every Pokemon in Pokemon Unite is either an attacker or a special attacker. And this can be a bit confusing because there are roles in Pokemon Unite, right? Defenders, speedsters, supporters, all-rounders, something else that I'm forgetting right now. But there are different roles in Pokemon Unite. Now, when I say it lowers their attack stat, I'm not specifically talking about the role of attackers. I'm talking about physical attackers. So I'll refer to these Pokemon as physical attackers to avoid confusion. But every role of Pokemon Unite, every Pokemon within each role, is either a physical attacker or special attacker. And the burn will specifically reduce the attack stat of opponents by 60%. This means that opponents who are physical attackers will specifically have their damage reduced. While special attackers, they'll still feel that slowing effect, they'll still feel that burning effect, that damage from burn, but their damage itself will not be reduced by 60% because the damage of special attackers is based on their special attacking stat. So, if you're using Scald against a team that has 5 special attackers, your Scald will not be reducing the opponent's damage at all. If you're using a team against 5 physical attackers though, it'll definitely reduce their damage a lot. Now, how do you know if an opponent is a physical attacker or special attacker? As far as I know, this screen, I probably have put it on the screen, but this area is the only place where you can actually see whether an opponent is an attacker or a special attacker, or a physical attacker or special attacker. I don't think there's any other way to see that in the game right now, which is kind of problematic, and I think they should implement that. I hope the devs do that at some point. There are websites like Unite API and Unite DB that have little sections called physical attacker and special attackers, so if you want to look at a list of these Pokemon, check out those websites. Great resources for any player. Hopefully Scald and how it works makes sense. So, as you can see, there are definitely situations where Scald is not very useful. Teams where there's fully special attackers, and then games where Scald is incredibly useful. Scald also, of course, like Surf, has a bit of a healing effect, and I won't go into too much detail on that. Another thing to keep in mind is that Scald has a lower cooldown compared to Surf, so that's just another thing that's pretty cool about Scald. Overall, I think Scald is a pretty solid move, but I personally prefer to use Scald if the opposing team is composed of mostly physical attackers. And by mostly I mean 3 or more, because there's 5 people on a team, so if at least 3 people are physical attackers, I'll generally go with playing Scald. If there are 4 people, then I'll almost always play Scald. But if there's 3, it depends on the physical attackers, and it depends on the rest of our team comp. Sometimes I think Surf is better, even if the opposing team has 3 physical attackers. Surf just might be better. 3 is that wiggle room. If there are only 2 physical attackers on the opposing team, I always go Surf. Without question, it's not a debate at all. It just doesn't feel very worthwhile to have a move that reduces the opponent's physical attack when there's not that many on the opposing team. So if there are 4 or more, I will always go for Slowbro. If there's 3, a little bit more wiggle room. Now for Surf. How does Surf work? Well, Surf is a very solid move in the sense that it provides so much CC in games, specifically when you reach level 11. I mean, prior to that, your first wave is causing CC from your Surf, but once you reach level 11, the second and third waves also cause CC. And it's a lot of CC, especially in team fights and at Rayquaza, and it really messes with opponents. Surf has a fairly decent area of effect, but Scald Plus, I believe, has a bit of a larger area. I could be wrong about that, but Scald has a fairly large area. Surf has a decent area too, though. And like I said, causes a lot of CC. It hits multiple opponents, and it's a great move. Again, restoring HP, just like Scald does, and it can do a decent amount of damage. But the biggest reason you'll probably choose Surf is because of the amount of CC it provides, and that CC will allow your teammates to jump in, do a lot of damage to opponents, hopefully KOing them, and allowing you to ultimately win team fights. If the opposing team is mostly composed of special attackers, I'll go for Surf. If our team doesn't have much CC, I will usually go for Surfbro. Like if we have 4 attackers and I'm playing a Slowbro or something, I'll probably go for Surf, just because the amount of CC it provides is probably like the equivalent of 1.5 defenders, I'll be honest, so it's kind of insane and you can do a lot with it, and you can definitely win games even if you have 4 attackers and you're playing a Slowbro. You can definitely win games. That's how powerful Surf is. If you're playing a Scald and you know, the opposing team has 5 attackers or 5 physical attackers and you're playing with Scald but your team doesn't have that much CC, like, I still think Surf is probably better in those situations because CC can make or break so many team fights, and when Rayquaza is one of the most important, if not the most important thing in a game, catching opponents in your Surf or in any form of CC can definitely cause you to either win or lose a game. So I do think Surf is in most cases a better move. As for the secondary move, I feel like if you're playing Scald, you almost always have to go Amnesia. It just allows you to be more tanky. I mean, Amnesia allows you to be more tanky regardless of your moveset, but Amnesia is just such a solid move. I highly recommend it no matter what. But if you're playing Scald, I feel like there's no other reason, there's no other move other than Amnesia. If you're playing Surf, you could go Telekinesis. Keep in mind, Telekinesis is a skill shot. It is kind of tough to hit it sometimes, but if you can land it, it's so much CC and such an annoyance for opponents, so it's a good move if used properly. But Amnesia in most cases is also good for Surfbro, so do recommend using Amnesia in most games, but I do think Telekinesis is definitely a fair and pretty good option if you're playing Surf. Outside of that, I think that's the most important things that I think about when I'm choosing whether to play Scald or Surf. I do think there are certain situations in certain games where one is better than the other, but like I said earlier, in most games I think Surf is the better choice. CC is just one of the most powerful things in Pokemon Unite, so if you can cause it, might as well do it. And if you land a perfect Surf, or if you land Surf on opponents, that's technically a 100% reduction in damage for the period of time where they are being CC'd because, you know, they're not able to attack you. So technically speaking, that's a 100% reduction in damage, versus Scald, it's a 60% reduction in damage, specifically against physical attackers. But something else to keep in mind, I mean, it's a 100% reduction in damage for that period of time of the Surf versus 60% reduction for the Scald burn duration, which is 3 seconds, so they kind of balance each other out in their own ways. But if you can land good Surfs, your team will love you. You're going to be causing so much damage, you're going to be causing so much CC. Your teammates ideally will be able to jump in, do a lot of damage, KO the opponents. So all in all, I hope this helped. I hope it gave you a bit of understanding on both the moves, when Scald is useful, when Surf is useful. If you use one more than the other, maybe try using the other one. See if you like it. If you don't, or if you think there are certain situations where you think one is better than the others and I didn't mention those reasons, be sure to let me know in the comment section. There are probably other situations that I haven't thought about specifically where one is better than the other, but they're both very good moves. They're both great moves. Slowbro, solid Pokemon. The Unite move, I mean, it's always been a staple in this game, and it probably always will be a staple in this game. Hopefully you found this helpful, educational, hopefully you learned something. If you did, let me know. That's pretty cool. And subscribing, like I said, is pretty cool. I don't do these videos often. I don't actually know if I've done a video specifically like this before, but if you want to see more of these, let me know. I could maybe do some. Hopefully you all enjoyed, and I will be there in the next video. Cheers.